Buick has not been on the average car enthusiast's radar for, well, never really. But that's going to change. At least that's what General Motors hopes. Even they know they have an image problem when it comes to Buick. That's why a lot of their ads recently have been targeting this as not your grandpa's car anymore. And after driving this for a little while, I really agree. Our spotlight is on this 2018 Buick Enclave Avenir. This is the top trim for the new midsize crossover SUV because the old generation was a full size. They've brought it down a category, but it's actually gotten bigger than the old one. So we're going to be showing you everything about this car, going for in-depth driving with it, and going over everything that you need to know if you're in the market for a midsize premium crossover SUV.
You and I might not agree on everything. Everybody has their own opinions about what they like and dislike, and like many people, I also had some pretty strong beliefs and biases towards certain brands and models. While we might have different opinions, I think I've shown over the years that I'm always open to new ideas. Each time I go to film a vehicle for test drive, I try to come at it with a new set of eyes, a fresh perspective. This is how I approach this all-new 2018 Buick Enclave, because before this week I wouldn't have considered myself a fan of General Motors, let alone enjoying the hell out of this Buick. But here I am, and I have. This is one of the most surprisingly comfortable crossovers I've driven to date, and I'm truly blown away with the work that Buick has put into this Enclave. Occupying the premium midsize segment now, the Enclave competes directly with the Acura MDX and Infiniti QX60. As all three are three-row vehicles and have more or less the same feature set, but the Buick really feels like it stands out. The exterior of this crossover looks nothing like its siblings, the Cadillac XT5, GMC Acadia, or Chevrolet Traverse, allowing the Buick to stand on its own in this segment. Up front, we find Buick's new Evonik Acrolite headlight system that features bi-LED headlamps and running lights, along with LED taillights out back. The return of the colored tri-shield is something GM enthusiasts have been asking for years now, and located below is one of the 4 cameras that makes up the 360-degree bird's-eye view system. Behind the Avenir 3D mesh grille are active air shutters that open or close depending on the weather environment and driving conditions. Along the front fenders are the Buick Ventiports, and all 4 doors feature keyless entry contact points, allowing you to unlock the rear doors when getting your kids into the vehicle. Out back we find a dual camera system on the power automatic liftgate. You can open the liftgate from the key fob, the button on the door, or by swiping your foot under the illuminated Buick logo on the ground. Moving inside, we find a unique interior design, which again isn't shared with its sister crossovers from Chevy, GMC, or Cadillac. This test model is finished in chestnut leather, which is the only color available with the Avenir trim. The door sills, carpet, and headrests all sport the Avenir branding, but doesn't make it look too tacky. The interior trim is finished in soft leather throughout, and feels really nice no matter where you sit. The leather-wrapped steering wheel has flappy paddles located behind, with radar cruise control, audio, and computer controls. While it did take me some getting used to, those controls eventually make sense and shouldn't be too much of a learning curve. The driver's screen is very functional with a touring and sport theme mode, along with the ability to display vehicle information, music, or navigation. The center media screen is a good size, though it feels angled just a little too high. The navigation itself isn't the best, but consistent with other premium navigation systems. One of the benefits of the Buick is Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so if you prefer your phone's navigation system, you'll enjoy it more than the stock system. Climate controls can be displayed through the screen, including the center row controls, which is easier for parents to adjust for smaller kids. The Surround Vision 360-degree system works very well, showing a bird's-eye view of your vehicle when backing up, and will also automatically engage when pulling into a tight space if the parking sensors detect an object is too close. The parking sensors also display the range on the driver's information display. I really do like the climate controls on this car. In fact, the entire interior really feels well laid out. Some might disagree and say it's too traditional or Spartan, but I really like the simplistic approach Buick is going with this model. Rather than loading it up with buttons and controls, the essentials are located where you'd expect them to be, and nothing more. Below the climate system are 2 USB ports, an aux port, and a Qi-compatible wireless charging pad, which works with devices like the Samsung Galaxy S8 and iPhone 8. Buick has gone with a very BMW-esque gear shifter, and can take some time getting used to. This is the only premium midsize crossover we've driven so far that has tossed out a conventional shifter. The biggest party trick of this Buick is the magic rearview mirror. It caught me off guard when I picked up this car because I wasn't expecting to find a digital display where the mirror usually is. I have to say this is one of the coolest features I've ever seen in a car, and I really like the approach GM has gone with this. The dual camera system on the trunk allows for an always-on rear image from the back of the car, and it's calibrated in a way to mimic the distance and size a traditional mirror would show, but removes the obstacles between you and the back windshield. Now at first, it will take some time getting used to. You won't be able to look at your hair in the mirror quickly like I always do, nor can you see your kids in the back seat if they're misbehaving. However, you can flick the mirror and revert back to a traditional reflection. Now here's why I say this is some of the coolest tech to date. I drove home in a snowstorm, like usual, and the back of the vehicle was covered in snow. The back windshield was pretty bad too, but there's a tiny jet nozzle located beside the camera. When you use the back spray button and the rear camera is on, it will clear the camera with washer fluid. Now this technology isn't 100% perfect, and sometimes a drop of water would get stuck on the lens and distort the image, but if GM is able to add the ability to shoot a bit of compressed air after the water to clean anything lingering, we might have a real solid system that works all the time. Moving to the rear area of the Enclave, it's configured for 7 passengers, with 2 captain's chairs in the center and a 3-row bench at the back. The back seats are power folding from the trunk area, but do require the center seats to be moved up about an inch. The captain's chairs can fold flat for even more storage, and even with them fully open, it's still pretty easy to get into that rear row. The 3rd row climate system is also pretty sophisticated, reminding me a lot of minivan design. The roof sports 4 directional air vents which provide ample circulation for rear passengers. There's also your typical floor vents located throughout, which really allows the center and rear passengers to be comfortable on your journey. We haven't seen these type of roof vents on any other crossover in this segment so far. The 2nd row moonroof is also a nice feature, allowing you to close the front screen while keeping the rears open. The LED interior lighting is also nice, but doesn't sport any ambient lighting, nor are there rear side window sunshades. But let's finally get behind the wheel of this premium midsize crossover SUV and see what 302 horsepower feels like in a vehicle of this size.
I know I mentioned it going over the interior of this car and everything, but I really am impressed with the Buick Enclave. I mean, again, it's not a vehicle that I would have ever considered for myself or my family, but we've been driving it now for almost a week, and it really has surprised me. It really is one of those few cars where I go in with a very blank slate, without really any expectations, to try to have the most accurate opinion I can about a vehicle, and it really did blow my mind in the sense that they really did put a lot into the entire car, not just the design of it, or the navigation screen here, or the camera on the back. Everything really does feel like they've put a lot of thought and engineering into it. It's very comfortable, even on the winter tires that we've got here. They are 20-inch rims, so again, like some of the other mid-size crossover SUVs we've been featuring in the winter here, they do have the full-size rims with winter tires, and it doesn't take away from the ride. Usually winter tires are a little bit harder and they are a little noisier, but so far we don't notice anything that's too bad when driving along most of the roads here. Getting on the highway, there's 0 issues whatsoever. The 302 horsepower engine really is able to get you up to speed quick, and it has a sport mode. We haven't had to use it, and interesting as well, you can disable the all-wheel drive system. You can just switch it over to front-wheel drive. I don't know why you ever would, but you totally could. Now, like with the other GM product that we drove, the Chevrolet Cruze, the auto start stop, there's no turning it off. It's on permanently, full-time, 100%. And I kind of find it's a little bit more smooth with this than it was with the Cruze. I don't find myself needing it to turn on any quicker. We're sitting at a light,
and you kind of anticipate, you know the light's going to go green, so you let go of the brake, and the car starts up pretty quick. So I find that it works a little bit better here, but again, it is kind of nice if you have the option to be able to disable that, because I do know a lot of people just don't like that in general. So that's something to note if you are interested in looking at this car. But I have to say, it really does have a lot going for it. We've driven it up. We're actually filming this in Val David right now, so it's about an hour or so north of Montreal. It's a little bit further north, so it took us about 3 hours to get here today, and it was a very comfortable ride overall. The vehicle is really just, yeah, it's not as soft as some other vehicles we've driven. The suspension is a little harder. You do feel a little bit of the road as you're going along, especially with the massive potholes that you find here in Quebec. But overall, it is a very comfortable ride, and the seats are also very comfortable. I'm very well seated here. And one thing that I've talked about probably on some other vehicles is usually my head is getting pretty close to the ceiling. I've got a few good inches here, and the seat could still go further down. This is the first car I've driven where I haven't just put the seat as far down as it can go. So it does have a higher ride. The ceiling height is quite good. And overall visibility is very good as well. I know a lot of people complain about the A-pillars on these newer vehicles, and it is kind of big, but the way that they've designed the front, you do have this little quarter window that doesn't actually move, sort of like an older style minivan, and that does help with some of the blind spot mitigation. You can kind of see around things, and I haven't had as much issue with some of the other crossovers we've driven where, you know, you're coming around a corner and you need to kind of look around that A-pillar. Hasn't been as bad with the Enclave. So there's a lot of good things going on with this car. I have to say, it's really, really well designed. I'm just, every time I get into it, I'm looking for excuses to go and drive, just because I really do enjoy it. I know it's not a car, and you know, crossovers don't get people too excited, but you know, this is a really, really surprisingly good car all around. And if you have a family like us, we've got our daughter in the back seat, so the captain's chair is great. She's got her own little spot there to be able to sit. And if you need to put people in the back, it's easy to get in and out of there. And if you don't, you just throw the seats down with the power folding option. I think it's very nice. And the back seat space is very good. You know, it's comparable to the Mazda CX-9 that we drove. It's comparable to the Infiniti QX60 that we drove. However, the trunk size is bigger when those rear seats are in the upright position. So you have a little bit more space back there than you would on some of the competition. So overall, it is a very good just driving experience all around. I think, if anything, the only thing that I'd suggest is maybe working a little bit on the navigation system. You know, we're not 100% sold on it, but as I mentioned again in the voiceover, you know, we've been using Apple CarPlay, and the Apple CarPlay system is better than the navigation built in. And then obviously, if I brought the USB-C for the Android phone we have, then Google Maps is the king. There's no dethroning that. That is the best experience you'll ever have with navigation, so you could do that as well. So overall, like, just solid car. Everything works exactly the way you want it to. Radar cruise control works very well. You know, it keeps the distance. I find it keeps the distance a little bit better than, say, the Mazda CX-9. The CX-9, if somebody pulls in front of you, it really hits the brakes hard in order to adjust the distance between you. But the Enclave here really seems like it's always tracking the distance. You can actually have the follow distance on your information screen here, and I find that if somebody pulls in front of you, let's say you've got the cruise control set to 110, and somebody pulls in front of you, they're maybe going a little slower, or they're a little bit closer, the car isn't going to slam on the brakes to adjust, but it'll slowly, gradually get into the position it's supposed to be, and then speed up gradually as well. So I find that the radar cruise control system is just a little bit more fluid on this than some of the other vehicles that we've driven. So overall, great things like that. And you know, I still like this little camera on the back. You know, we do have to clean it a little bit more often with the rain, but it really works well. I really like it, and it gives you the opportunity to get rid of anything that might be blocking your view from the back. And that's the whole point of the rear view camera. It's not to take a look at how good you look, it's to see what's going on out the back, and it works a lot better than flipping it down and having to look through you know, a relatively short window there where it kind of cuts off some of the, you know, the wiper doesn't articulate the full distance. That's a very good size for it there with the camera, and I really like it. And I gotta say, it's one of those features that everybody else copies each other, right? Everybody copied parking sensors, cruise control, blind spot monitoring. Now backup collision avoidance is something that people are starting to copy, but I don't think that this technology is necessarily going to be replicated onto the lower brands for a little while. So it's a feature that I think Buick and Cadillac are going to have an exclusive kind of product for a little while at least. But overall, fantastic ride, and it really has surprised me to be able to drive this car over the last week now, because like I said, I wasn't really ever thinking about Buick before, but my mind has certainly been changed. I have really enjoyed the drive of this vehicle.
This is a really fantastic crossover, and I think families should seriously consider looking at Buick if they're in the market for a 3-row vehicle and want some luxuries to go along with it. The second row captain's chairs made installing our Britax Frontier car seat a breeze, and being able to slide the seat forward and back made anchoring the back simple, and allows for additional legroom should you need it. Seating is comfortable in the second row, and like other 7-passenger crossovers we featured, the back bench is ideal for kids or smaller adults. We averaged 11.2 liters per 100 kilometers on our week with this vehicle, which is far better than the Mazda CX-9 at 12.7 liters per 100 kilometers and the Infiniti QX60 around 13. Overall, we felt this Buick really did provide a luxury driving experience, one that would rival something like the BMW X5 or Audi Q7, but felt more exclusive since Buick has a smaller market share than the Germans. I know most people don't get excited when they see a crossover, but these are incredibly important vehicles for the majority of the auto market these days, and even though I really don't consider myself a fan of SUVs, I was thoroughly enjoying this Enclave. Overall, we were impressed with the ride quality, interior trim finishes, rear view camera, engine performance, and the available features on this Buick Enclave. While this is the first year of production for this generation, it means there is some room for improvement. The navigation screen could be improved. We'd also like to see a heads-up display and rear window sunshades. Finally, some might be annoyed by the heating controls since they aren't centered with the media buttons or infotainment screen. If you have any questions about this vehicle, please leave a comment below and we'll do our best to answer them. We always try to reply to all the comments we can on this channel, as the community is the most important aspect of Test Drive and Perpetual Radio. Your support also makes this show possible, so please give us a thumbs up if you liked this episode, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. We've booked new vehicles until March with the hope of getting back into the enthusiast communities to start filming classic cars come spring. We're taking Test Drive to the next level this year, but we're still committed to sticking to our roots by featuring older models that we love. Until next time, thanks for watching, and take care.